Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and explore exactly where AI is taking over human work and, honestly, more importantly, where it isn't. We hear a lot of noise every single day about artificial intelligence transforming the global workforce, right? But when you look closely, so much of that conversation relies on vague assumptions and broad generalizations. Well, today, we're going to look at some truly fascinating research from MIT that cuts straight through all that hype to give us an actual, data-driven map of human labor.
So, where can AI actually be used? It's literally the biggest question on everyone's mind right now. Business leaders, policymakers, everyday workers, we're all trying to figure out which jobs are safe and which ones are on the chopping block. But to answer this question without just totally guessing, we need a literal map of human labor. We have to understand the fundamental building blocks of what people actually do all day.
To put this into perspective, our source material starts with this staggering number, 20,000. That is roughly the amount of sprawling, messy, compound human work activities documented in the U.S. Department of Labor's ONET database. Now, it's incredibly comprehensive, but it's an absolute nightmare for researchers to analyze because, well, human tasks are complicated. A single job might involve writing a report, physically inspecting a building, and managing a team. You just can't slap an AI can do this label on a compound task like that.
Well, MIT researchers came up with a pretty elegant solution to this mess. They created a deep ontology of work activities. Sounds a bit academic, right? But an ontology is essentially just a formal framework. Think of it as a massive multi-level family tree of work. Instead of looking at a messy list of 20,000 tasks, they broke everything down into almost 40,000 distinct activities, ranging from incredibly broad categories all the way down to hyper-specific atomic tasks.
Here's our itinerary for this explainer. First, the AI applicability question. Second, mapping human work. Third, think, do, or interact. Fourth, the creative AI boom. Fifth, where AI cannot go. And finally, predicting AI's next moves.
So, Section 1, the AI applicability question, understanding the limits and potential of AI. The crucial point here is that we currently lack a systematic framework to predict AI feasibility. We absolutely need to turn guesswork into data science. We need to know exactly where it's technically and economically viable to deploy artificial intelligence today and how that landscape might shift tomorrow.
To build this predictive map, the researchers needed massive data sets. They weren't just looking at theoretical AI, they looked at what is actually out there on the market. They took over 13,000 distinct AI software applications and data on nearly 21 million robots operating worldwide. By mapping all of this technology onto their new framework of human work, they could see exactly where AI is operating today and, just as importantly, where human effort remains completely untouched by machines.
Section 2, Mapping Human Work, Building the Family Tree of Labor. Let's actually look at how this framework builds our cartographic map of human effort, because it's one thing to talk about a family tree of work, but it's totally different to see how it breaks down from a philosophical concept into a daily office task.
This hierarchy breaks everything down so beautifully. On the far left, you've got the most basic concept imaginable, act, just doing something. Then it asks, act on what? From there, it breaks down into parent activities like create information, down through generic activities like select, all the way to atomic activities like select method. Finally, on the far right, you get the actual real-world task a human does, like select banding methods to permit identification of chromosome pairs. It is a stunning piece of organizational architecture.
Moving to Section 3, think, do, or interact. The three main continents of work. What's super fascinating here is how all human action divides into three massive continents. When you look at the top level of this ontology, every single thing a human being does for work falls into one of these three buckets. You either act on information, which we can call think, you act on physical objects, which is do, or you act with other activities or actors, which is interact.
Get this. When the researchers mapped those 13,000 AI software applications onto these three continents, the results were completely lopsided. A shocking 92% of all AI software applications analyzed are concentrated purely in the think continent, acting on information. So, if you've ever felt like AI was coming for your desk job rather than your plumbing job, well, this data absolutely validates that feeling for sure.
Zooming in closely on that 92%, we see an incredibly skewed reality. More than half of all AI software on the market today, around 58%, is dedicated exclusively to creating information. Another 22% is focused on transferring it, and 14% on modifying it.
We are quite literally living in an era where AI development is obsessively focused on information generation.
Looking at the distribution across activity types, you can see that skewed reality perfectly. If you picture all human action radiating out from a center point, getting more specific as it expands, you'll notice something striking. The highest concentration of AI software targets a very specific edge. What this proves is that AI isn't doing everything, far it. It's highly concentrated in a tiny fraction of specific work activities in those most heavily targeted zones.
Section 4. The creative AI boom, zooming in on the saturated zones. Let's zoom into that most heavily targeted area, create information, to see exactly what AI is conquering right now, because this is where all the headlines are being made.
Here we see the generative AI boom in action. Notice the heavy concentration on tasks like generating images using computers, creating video, and writing content. Most current AI is obsessively focused on expressing information. It's heavily biased toward digital content creation rather than deeper analytical thinking or complex problem solving.
Actually, these top 20 activities really drive the point home. They represent a mere 0.1% of all possible human tasks on the researcher's map, literally 1/10 of 1%. Yet this tiny fraction of activities accounts for a massive 35% of all AI software applications on the market. It's highly tractable, highly profitable, and entirely saturated.
Section 5. Where AI cannot go. The blank spaces on the map. As an enthusiastic explainer of data, I find the completely unpopulated areas of this map even more fascinating than the crowded ones. If we really want to understand the true limits of current AI, we need to look at what it isn't doing. Let's contrast this. While AI heavily saturates digital content creation, generating images, writing code, summarizing text, the map is completely blank when it comes to a vast array of other activities. Tasks like administering a medical treatment, granting authorization, or issuing authoritative orders have virtually zero AI software applications dedicated to them.
So why are these spaces empty? It's not just that developers haven't gotten around to it. These blank spots exist because these tasks require true human presence, social nuance, and crucially, high-stakes accountability. If an AI generates a weird image, you just click Regenerate. But if an AI incorrectly authorizes a massive financial transfer or issues a faulty medical order, the consequences are catastrophic. These tasks are currently beyond AI's technical reach, or they simply lack the economic value and societal trust required for automation.
Section 6. Predicting AI's next moves, using inheritance to see the future. Okay, let's dive into how this framework actually allows us to predict where AI will expand next. We don't just want to know where AI is today, we want a crystal ball for tomorrow.
The source paper introduces a brilliant concept called inheritance. Think of it kind of like a genetic family tree. If a parent activity, let's say writing, has a high applicability for AI, then its child activities, like writing a report or writing a grant application, will likely inherit that high AI applicability too.
As the researchers point out, this gives us principled grounds for hypothesizing future tech development. By tracking how AI applicability trickles down these branches, we can anticipate future disruptions long before they hit the mainstream market. If developers crack the code on a broad parent task, every single subtask underneath it is suddenly in play. Of course, there are exceptions. Writing a deeply personal love letter might be a subtask of writing that resists AI, but as a general predictive model, it is incredibly powerful.
And this brings us to the ultimate question for all of us. As you navigate your own career and think about the skills you are building, you've got to ask yourself, are your daily tasks sitting right in the heavily targeted, red-hot crosshairs of the AI software boom, or are they safely embedded in the human-centric blank spaces of the map, the ones rooted in deep social interaction, physical presence, and unautomatable human accountability? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the map.